Welcome to this conversation on global diplomatic upheavals in East Africa. So, we're looking at this bold move, Kenyan President William Ruto appointing Raila Odinga as Kenya's special envoy to South Sudan as a response to an escalating crisis there.
Yeah, that's quite the headline. What exactly triggered this diplomatic shakeup in South Sudan?
Well, it all starts with deep-rooted tensions over in South Sudan. The conflict reignited because President Salva Kiir and his former rival, now First Vice President Riek Machar, are in a bitter struggle. And this got worse when Machar was placed under house arrest, something his party argues completely wipes out the 2018 peace deal that had been holding things together after years of brutal civil war.
Right. And that 2018 deal was a big deal, wasn't it? I mean, it ended years of violence, right?
Oh, absolutely. It was supposed to be the very fragile anchor of peace in a country where, the scars of a devastating conflict still run deep. You could say that it's the fine thread holding together a tapestry that's been ripped apart by ethnic strife between Kiir's Dinka and Machar's Nuer.
Yep, right. And that history, starting from South Sudan's independence in 2011 and then sliding into a bloody civil war just 2 years later, really set the stage for what we're witnessing today?
Exactly. After independence, hopes turned high, but then civil war hit hard. Over 400,000 lives were lost, millions displaced, and entire communities destroyed. And it wasn't just a local issue. The fallout spilled into neighboring regions like Kenya, Uganda, and Ethiopia, causing massive refugee flows and economic disruptions.
So, this appointment of Odinga, what's his role going to be amid this chaos?
Odinga, who's no stranger to high-stakes diplomacy, is stepping into a role that could really, redefine how mediation happens in the region. It's not merely a symbolic gesture. He's been charged with negotiating between South Sudan's key players, trying to rein in further violence before everything spirals out of control.
Yeah, I hear that. And Kenya has been playing a mediator role for ages, right? What's so different about this mission?
That's an excellent point. Kenya has historically stepped in as a mediator, but this time around the stakes are even higher. With the fragile peace deal now disintegrating and the UN and African Union calling for urgent de-escalation, Odinga's task is steeped in both political and humanitarian challenges.
Speaking of international perspectives, there was even a comment from former U.S. President Donald Trump, calling the situation a result of weak leadership. Do you think that kind of remark adds weight to the crisis?
It certainly stokes the conversation. His brief remark, saying that weak leadership leads to chaos, kinda underscores the perceived failure in resolving such conflicts. However, I must challenge that notion a bit. It's a bit oversimplified, don't you think? The situation is tangled with layers of historical grievances, ethnic divides, and failed diplomatic proceedings, not just weak leadership.
Yeah, I agree. Right, it's not like there's a quick fix here. There's so much complexity involved.
Absolutely. And now, with regional heavyweights like Uganda's President Museveni and Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed in close talks with President Ruto, there's a push for a more African-led intervention. It's like the continent is striving to take matters into its own hands this time around.
So, Odinga steps into an arena loaded with past grudges, political rivalries, and broken promises. It sounds almost like he's walking into a minefield.
Precisely. It's a real hotbed of challenges. His diplomatic experience is considerable, yet he's facing a tempest of old animosities and new power struggles. And if diplomacy fails, the repercussions could be severe, not just for South Sudan, but for the entire East African region.
Yeah, that could mean more refugees and economic instability, right? Exactly. Those ripple effects can destabilize the region even further.
Plus, the UN has issued serious warnings, urging for immediate de-escalation, and the African Union remains steadfast in advocating for African-led solutions to avoid another humanitarian disaster. It's like everyone's on high alert.
Indeed. Now, considering all this, do you see any potential for a successful outcome? Or is this just another chapter in a long saga of unresolved conflicts?
Honestly, the potential is there, but it's a gamble. The diplomatic path is fraught with risk. Odinga's history suggests he can navigate tricky political terrains, but the entrenched divisions and a shattering of trust may prove too much if even one party feels sidelined.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance. I guess in some ways, it's like trying to rebuild a very fragile house of cards in a storm.
That's a vivid analogy, really captures the precariousness of the situation. Despite the hope of steering away further chaos, the underlying issues remain, and any slip-up could, send the whole structure crashing down.
Exactly. And what do you think this means for regional stability moving forward?
Well, if diplomacy holds, we might see a temporary easing in tensions and a window to address some long-standing issues. But if it fails, then we're looking at more refugees, disrupted trade, and another surge in security challenges across East Africa. It's an urgent wake-up call for regional
no doubt
unity.
about that. With such high stakes, do you think there's enough momentum among these regional leaders to really make a difference?
That's the trillion-dollar question. There's been some promising signals, like close talks between Ruto, Museveni, and Abiy, but all of that hinges on genuine commitment and the ability to overcome years of mistrust and rivalry.
It's definitely a tall order. I love how this discussion really shows that these geopolitical moves are never just about diplomacy. They're about history, trust, and survival.
Exactly. And it's a balancing act of diplomacy and strategy. The choice to send Odinga isn't just political theater. It's a calculated risk aiming to avert further disaster, hopefully safeguarding the lives and livelihoods tied up in this complex web of events.
It's one of those high-stakes moves where every decision counts. Well, this certainly gives us a lot to reflect on. The interplay of history, regional power, and personal diplomacy here is, fascinating, and at times unsettling.
Absolutely. The whole episode is a reminder that in global politics, every move has long-lasting ripple effects. It's like a chess game where even a single misstep can reshape an entire board.
Exactly. And as always, the human impact, the refugees, the economic disruptions, is the harsh reality behind these high-level decisions.
For sure. It's a complex mix of power, politics, and the fight to preserve peace. I think our conversation just scratches the surface, but it really highlights the imperative need for thoughtful, experienced diplomacy in these fragile situations.
Yep, indeed.